All right, we're back. As is Tim.
Tim Sperry, 22 Broad Street. So just want a little history. As I said, Peddler's Park was used as a dump for many years in my early childhood, late 50s, early 60s. Then in the 70s, it wasn't only pickup softball games. There were certain things that went on Friday and Saturday nights that we didn't tell Mom and Dad. And then there were the Frog Leap concerts. So Peddler's has got a long, storied history. It also has a really bad history of neglect, and you can see it today. Walk down there, piles of yard or road waste and everything like that. It's been an abused park. And then next to it is majestic beauty. Those granite rocks are so impressive, and the natural beauty as you walk through there. And I want to say that Bowie, who is my 18-month-old golden retriever, clearly says no to disc golf on this site. He would love to watch disc golf at some other location. And so I want to address a little bit about process. And all the information I'm going to relay now came out of the minutes of Park and Recreation. So it's my understanding that up until April of last year, Bittner was the favored location from, and I don't remember his name, Brad Sibel, I believe, who was a disc golf pro, recommended Bittner Park, and it's in the April minutes. Then something happened in between that April meeting and the middle of February. Two members of the board of the Park and Rec Commission and Rick walked the properties and came back and said, it's Peddler's. And there's no explanation in the minutes whatsoever as to why it suddenly changed over to Peddler's. But I would recommend the Parks and Rec go back to the original recommendation of a disc golf pro, which is represented in numerous occasions in the minutes. He was the person who helped sponsor the tournament in 2016. Go back to his recommendation, give these guys a worthy project, and build a disc golf course at Bittner. We've heard from a lot of people here tonight that they play on disc golf courses that crisscross trails and crisscross public activities, and because disc golfers are really great people, they let the people go through. So let them go through at Bittner instead of at the majestic beauty of Peddler's Park. Because you're going to go through there, you're going to rip out the trees for parking, then you're going to take out selected trees, as long as they're only 8 inches or less, and concrete pads or AstroTurf pads or gravel pads, whatever. Leave it alone. It's been sitting there, and I do think that we don't know the actual confines of the dump. And so you are going to start digging, and you are going to find some stuff. So let's leave it alone. And then at some future date, when we put it into a plan, and Matt, you're getting a good reputation now for planning things out, we may say, you know what, Peddler's would be a great place to have a non-sporting venue park where people can go, sit at picnic tables, have family events, and de-stress in the natural beauty of Peddler's Park. And meanwhile, disc golf will be wildly successful at Bittner Park or at Guilford Lakes Golf Course or some other venue in town. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Chris Anderhagen, 200 Landon's Way. They looked at Bittner's originally. It's got great parking, it's got bathrooms, but because it crossed trails, they decided not to use it. So they go to Peddler's where we've got to build parking, it crosses trails. Doesn't seem to make sense to me. The other issue, the same thing my wife mentioned, is how many people want to come and play? We hear it's an up-and-coming trend, and then we hear at the peak time, we're going to have 15, 20 people. That's up and coming. There's 27 courses in Connecticut. Has anybody talked to the people in New Canaan? Their course was built in 2007. You talk to residents there, it's a failed experiment. Nobody uses it. It's overgrown. The tee boxes are all rotting out. My suggestion is, and I have nothing against disc golf, let's not build it for a year. Let's take some hours a week at our golf course, which is losing money, and let it be used for disc golf, and let's see how many people come and play. Is it really up and coming? Lastly, they talked about safety and they poo-pooed it. A disc for disc golf is not the one we used to throw around in high school. It can weigh as much as 6 ounces. I didn't know what 6 ounces is. It's the same as a pool ball. Think about a thin, round-edged pool ball hitting you in the head. Yes, a woman in California lost eyesight. The kid got hit in the head and took 12 stitches. Other towns have been sued. That's an unintended cost. And I know Rick talks about we've got sponsors. Nobody is going to take on the court case as a sponsor or the settlements. Thank you.
Karen Coyne, 71 Dennison Drive. Our property directly abuts the park, so we welcome this discussion, which will cover issues like need, suitability of use, compatibility with the current productive use of the property, safety, cost, and other topics. The discussion is welcome because some facts have been misstated or omitted from presentations that resulted in this proposal being passed by Parks and Rec, Wetlands, and Planning and Zoning. For example, impact to neighbors was downplayed at the Planning and Zoning meeting when it was stated that only 2 homes were adjacent to the proposed use and that they are 400 yards from the planned golf holes. In fact, there are 6 Dennison Drive homes that directly border the park, and most of them are less than 50 feet from the fairways as approved. We would like to bring up, once again, one additional concern, which is primary for our family, the historic landfill on the property. All appropriate town departments and commissions are aware of this ongoing issue. We ask that the appropriate town departments begin a process to characterize the waste on site, including the possibility that the waste has migrated into neighboring properties, and to create and publish a responsible plan to remediate the characterized conditions. If the consensus is that a Frisbee golf course is in the town's best interest and all other concerns are addressed, we would ask that the plan be revised to 9 holes and a 200-foot safety buffer be established along all adjacent homeowner properties. Finally, we would like to reiterate, based on observation from our own back deck, that the current use of Peddler's Park is highly productive and continuously utilized by hikers to access one of our town's best assets, the Westwoods Trail System. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll make this quick because I've been up here too much.
That's okay. That's why we're doing this.
But it's comment time, so. So basically, just to reiterate, especially for the scouts here, we're not against Frisbee golf. That's not the point here. But point is that it's just, Peddler's Park seems ill-suited for that type of use. It's like trying to put a square peg in a round hole. The neighbors and the people that live around the park are not only against it because we live there, but because of what's been mentioned by all the people who've come up about how beautiful it is, and it's pristine, and it does get used, and people hike and love it, and now you're going to take all these trees down and put up tees and et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to repeat everything that has been said. However, we do feel that we're sort of backed into a corner because we believe that if not this, then what? because we know, and it's been made very clear, that Parks and Rec is determined to use this parcel. And it was going to be the dog park. We fought that. We won, but I think the only reason we won is because the dog park people didn't even want it there. I think they decided that they didn't like it, the area, so they went elsewhere. So if not this, then what? And as far as having a sort of open process, I mean, Rick got up here and said that they started to talk about this in June. The right way to do it would have been to send out letters then saying, hey, this is what we're thinking about. We'd like to have a meeting with the neighbors since your property directly abuts this parcel. I mean, that's the way to do it. That's the right way to do it. Not, let's see, you were thinking about it in June. We got a letter on December 13th, 5 days or 4 days before the public hearing. And that hearing wasn't in front of Parks and Rec. That hearing was in front of Planning and Zoning. We all went there and we were told, no, you're talking about stuff that's not in our scope. No, we don't want to hear about it. We're only about public safety and nothing more. If you're going to talk about anything else, sorry, we don't want to hear it. So it wasn't quite an open process as was presented by Rick. That being said, as I said before, the neighbors have gotten together. We are willing to work with Parks and Rec, but we would like to have some compromise. And with all the different things going on in terms of, well, we're going to move this here, we're going to move that. I'm looking at this map. I don't even know what's what anymore, looking at these squiggly lines on this map. So I just think that this thing needs to be redrawn up with all the changes and the modifications. We would like to have buffer of 200 feet from the property borders on Dennison Drive. We would also like to have a 9-hole golf course. I mean, what's wrong with a 9-hole golf course? Especially when you don't know how this thing is going to even take off. It could, as was pointed out, we don't know. So I think 9 would be a good place to start and end. Also, the couple neighbors that are directly impacted, nobody wants to play the lawsuit card, but that has been brought up in our group. I think that there could be a lawsuit filed. Anybody could file a lawsuit, right? I mean, and to me, this is a prima facie case of public nuisance, perhaps private nuisance, diminution of value, property value. Neighbors do not have to gather money to hire a lawyer. I'm a lawyer. I volunteered my time. I would represent my neighborhood in a heartbeat, but we don't want to go there. Again, we're willing to compromise, but compromise takes 2 parties. So that's all I have to say. Thanks. And thanks for your time.
Hello, my name is Sarah Williams. I live at 32 County Road. I've lived in Guilford for 18 years, and for 14 of them, I've been a volunteer with the Guilford Land Trust. So I know this property pretty well. I've helped pull the metal pieces out of the trails that push themselves up annually. I've led hikes with little children and elderly people on the property. And I guess I have, 3 main sort of issues with this plan. I really don't think it's the intent of the town of Guilford to close down the northern entrance of the most popular trail system along the shoreline or in the region. But unfortunately, this is not a compatible use with the types of trails that the Land Trust has operated on this property for 50 years at no cost to the town of Guilford. So I know that's not what Rick Maynard wants to do, but the town has a different kind of insurance than the Land Trust has. We don't do active recreation. And do you know how many places you can get insurance for land trusts? Not very many. So it's a problem that we have to consider. These are not, as has been stated, they're not the regular kind of Frisbees that you think of, like on the Guilford Green. They're weighted and they're sharp, and so they're just totally not something that hikers are expecting to come through the woods. So it's a concern for us. I think I heard 6 crossings of trails. I couldn't really see. So tonight I'm just going to speak quickly as a resident, not a representative of the Land Trust. There's a dump on this property, and it's been discussed only a couple times tonight, and it's been a concern of mine since the dog park proposal on this property, because the Land Trust shares the whole southern border with this piece, and of course everything that flows off that goes through our property and down into Westwoods, which then goes through Lost Lake and to the Long Island Sound. So I went to Town Hall South and I said, so I know there's a dump here, where's the dump and what's in the dump? And Dennis Johnson, our public health director, who I really like, said, what dump? There wasn't a map, and we don't really know what was in it, but it sounds like from the stories pretty much everything is in it. And that's a concern because it's staying put now because we're not moving things aggressively. But since we don't seem as willing as a town to pay for environmental digging around to see what's in there, we're not going to know, period. And that's a concern for those of us who are downstream. They're pretty special places downstream. So the second concern I have is a budgetary concern. As a taxpayer, I think it's problematic when we have a town department that has a pot of money that's kind of play money on the side, and it doesn't go through the normal budget scrutiny. That's not a best practice. And part of the reason that you want budget scrutiny is so you have daylight on ideas like this, right? So we're talking about it during the budget process, and we're understanding what it is way ahead of time. So we don't have neighbors who feel put upon and surprised. And that point segues to my final one, which is that as a community, Guilford has lived through a couple years of public hearings and signage along roadways and lots of upset and tumult in the community over projects often initiated by sort of good ideas, recreational ideas, but that make neighborhoods feel attacked by the town of Guilford. So we went through this election, and the dialogue around the election was, we're not going to do it like that anymore. We're going to be better about our communication. We're going to get out there. We're going to meet with the neighbors, and we're going to be more open so that neighbors don't feel attacked by projects from the town of Guilford. So maybe this can be our first Exhibit A of what not to do. There are neighbors up here that clearly they spent all this time at the map because they didn't have their questions answered before. So we didn't, as a community, deal with that. And the idea, I just heard that they were invited to a meeting a couple days before Christmas, a couple days before, that. It's just not appropriate. It's not adequate. So we can do better than this, and I think our community wants to. There is going to be a comment from the Guilford Land Trust. Our vice president is here to give it to you guys, but I'm not representing today. So disc golf is lovely. Whoever has said before that we have a golf course that's not doing so well in Guilford, and the first event in Guilford for disc golf was there. I don't know why we're not considering that. It sounds like it was really successful. That's why we're still talking about disc golf, right? So anyway, I just think that's something to consider. Peddler is also something to consider. Thanks.
Good evening. I just want to make one point of clarification. Tim was absolutely right. Tim Sperry said that was a dump back in the late 50s, early 60s, but it was a burning dump. It was never a landfill. What you see there, and there's metal, and everybody's testified to it, there's metals, and I'm sure if you dug around, you'd find glass shards and pottery and all that stuff. Typical residue from burning dumps. Burning dumps was the way, before there was sanitary landfills established, way people got rid of their waste. And they would bring their waste in maybe once or twice a week. What was brought in would be burned. You almost start all over again. There were probably a half a dozen those kinds of dumps around the town I've encountered in the last 40 years. We've had housing developments built on some of those burning dumps, and we've gone back and tested the ash, looked at the material that came out, and there never has been a situation where we've had any toxic material or anything other than, as I said, metal, glass, and that kind of residue. The whole process of burning that stuff up, and we all remember back when, in the days before air quality was an issue, well, we don't all remember, some of these people have no idea about that. But that became a big issue in the 60s, and it started to rise to the top of the concerns of people. And so burning dumps were ceased. They stopped using them, and they started going to what they call sanitary landfills. Sanitary landfills are the worst thing you could do. All you're doing is putting it in a big plastic bag, and it's been a real problem for the town of Guilford and any other town, because when you put it in the ground, it's going to leach into the groundwater. Those burning dumps didn't do that. All the toxic materials and all the stuff, the volatile organics, they got burnt up in the process. Dennis Johnson, I think he has told people that they've gone out and tested the water down in the area of the Peddler's Park and found nothing but clear water. There's no toxicity in the water at all. So I just want to make that clear. It was a dump. Tim Sperry was absolutely right. That's where people went. It got burnt up. And the reason I understood, and I remember this from, I think it was Milt Bullard or Edwin Bartlett going back some years ago. The reason it was closed is not because they had run out of space or anything like that. People downwind started complaining about the smoke. Very understandable. But that's the history, as I understand it. So, thank you.
Hi, I'm Robert Vavasser. I live at 575 Leeds Island Road here in Guilford. I sent the letter, which I brought with me late afternoon, to the board, and I just want to read it into the record. Having heard so many different people speak about different places that have been considered, I haven't heard very much about one until just recently, the last couple of comments, about a third that might provide a compromise. That would be the Guilford Lakes Golf Course, our existing golf course. Dear members of the Board of Selectmen, I write to urge you to support consideration of the Guilford Lakes Golf Course as the location of the new disc golf course that has been proposed by our Parks and Recs Commission for the Peddler's Park land. My reasons for suggesting use of the Guilford Lakes Golf Course are several. First, if the town agrees to locate the disc golf course at Peddler's Park, it will help to create a safety hazard to users of Westwoods for hiking. The discs used in the game, I am told, can reach speeds of up to 60 miles per hour. And hikers in the adjacent woods would have good reason to fear for their safety while hiking in adjoining parts of Westwoods. Just as we would not want to have hikers crossing golf courses, we should not place disc golfers next to long existing and heavily used hiking trails, where the two uses could come into conflict. The potential legal liability for the town, from having knowingly chosen to encounter a risk of physical harm to members of the public, could be considerable if a serious injury were to result. Second, the Guilford Lakes Golf Course is already laid out as a traditional golf course with all of the planning necessary to prevent potential hazards to the public from that use, having been done. There are no conflicting recreational uses adjoining that property, to my knowledge, so it would appear to permit this new type of golf to be played without the town undertaking any legal liability from its approval in that venue. Hikers and disc golfers can pursue their respective recreational sport without engendering needless conflict between the groups or creating new legal liabilities for the town. Third, the Guilford Lakes Golf Course already has adequate parking facilities for the traditional golfing public in town, so there would likely be no need to undertake construction of new parking lots for the disc golfers with the additional costs associated with constructing and maintaining them for alternative golfing use. When the town has resources already available that are capable of satisfying the different needs of hikers and disc golfers without creating conflict or expense for the town or disruption to long-established uses of open space like Westwoods, it seems only sensible to pursue available options that will be agreeable to all parties when considering or approving a new recreational amenity like disc golf. Very truly, Rob Vavasser.
My name is Kirk Griffin. I live at 638 West Lake Avenue, Guilford. I've been here for 38 years now, and I come at this from two different sides. This is one of the tools that I used in Westwoods when I was chairman of the Trails Committee for 6 years. We built 31 bridges out there. I spent probably well over 1,000 hours in those 6 years and before and after maintaining the trails, and building the plank walk, and all kinds of sorts of things. On the other side, I play frisbee golf, disc golf. It's fun. It's the area in Peddler's Park I am very familiar with. Like I said, I was trail manager for 6 years. It is a pass-through area. Nobody spends more than 5 or 10 minutes between the parking lot and the plank walk. You walk from one place to the other, you go through it, and there's very little activity there except for just entering. It's an access to the rest of the Westwoods. One point that I thought might be interesting, I don't know if anybody's been out there looking at it, but there's a pile of rocks there that the town crew uses. They go in there with a backhoe and pick it up. This is in Peddler's Park. There's piles of sand that the town crew uses, and there's piles of topsoil that they use for around parks, I guess, in town. This is not exactly a pristine area. Even I didn't realize that it was a dump at one time. But anyway, I don't see really any reason why there shouldn't be a disc golf course on that property. It does not seem to be a conflict. Thank you.
Judy Sullivan from 1001 Goose Lane. I'm very much in favor of this disc golf course. I'm not sure that the people that are saying we should go and check out the golf course at Guilford Lakes, because disc golf fairways are totally different. It's not pristine. Half of the fun is walking through the woods and throwing the disc. So I think Guilford Lakes is too pristine for what disc golf is, because the fairways are going through the trees, etc. I have to say, too, that Peddler's Park is park and rec property. We have tried and are trying to use our resources to the best of our ability, and Peddler's Park was picked because it was a better situation than Bittner, because there are lots more trails through Bittner. The foliage was a little more thicker. Then if you have disc golf players, you have Little League going, you have girls softball going, you have soccer going, you have skate park going, and pickleball going, all at the same time. It's just more congested at Bittner than if we started and set up for Peddler's Park. Everybody wants to know, well, how many people and whatever. We're just asking if we could get it going so we could see and not panic about, oh, there are going to be 20 people, the cars go too fast. The cars go too fast on the roads in Guilford anyways. It's a country, or it was a nice country town, but there just seems to be a lot of people. I have to say, I've lived here all my life. I've seen a lot of changes, and I think a lot of the mentality, and I'm going to be fresh now, is not in my backyard. So it would be nice if we could all work together. I think we have been trying to work together. Craig has gone out, Rick has gone out, met with the neighbors on Denison Drive. They've moved things. So I think our side is trying to work with them. But sometimes, after listening to everybody, I don't think they're listening to us. So I'm very much in favor of it. Thank you.
Street. This is not a Frisbee disc game. This is one of the original Whammo Frisbees I got on my 7th birthday, I believe, in 1966, and I used to play on the Columbia University campus with it. I've been a Frisbee fanatic my entire life. I've done things with his Frisbees which you shouldn't talk about in public in this room, and some of you will know exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm a big fan of Frisbee, and I think Frisbee golf is a great idea, and I would love to see it in Guilford. However, I did not come here to praise the location. I came here to bury it, quite frankly, along with all the potential toxic waste that is on the site. Before we do anything which brings the public out on this area, since it was a dump and maybe things were just burned there, but anything and everything was burned there, you know, we don't know. Maybe we need to do a survey, do a little brownfield cleanup survey with a professional environmental scientist before we put any kind of children or adults, dogs, whatever, out playing on that. That's one point. Another point is, I was quite surprised about this program money. I had always assumed that park and rec programs are charged an appropriate fees to pay the instructors and to pay for the program themselves. I didn't realize that they were actually generating a financial surplus. Again, hey, I'm an old stagehand. I'm not a financial guy, but you know, when you're doing multi-million-dollar shows, moving on 10 or 12 trucks at a time, and you know, doing this on a weekly basis, you learn to be pretty careful about your money because it's a profit-making business, and you just don't lose 30,000 here or 30,000 there to apply to something else. So I'm quite shocked to find out that there is this discretionary money in Park and Rec where they can apply to other things, whereas I thought those programs are basically being charged, you know, just like building permits are supposed to be. The cost of the building permit is equivalent to what it costs the town to run the operation of granting building permits. The road that's situated on, Peddler's Road, it's not Route 77. Route 77 is a nice state-run road, maintained, it's been straightened, it's been brought up to code a lot, whereas Peddler's Road is one of the beautiful old twisty and turny roads that goes back literally centuries, and you could never really widen it. The financial aspect of this, put up a parking lot, I'm saying Bittner Park is it. They got parking lots already, they have bathrooms already, they have large open space. Now, I don't have kids. I don't go to Bittner Park a lot. I've been there at times. I've actually been up there a number of times to look at the skate park, because that was going up when I was first moving to Guilford, and I remember we spent a ton of money on it, and it fell into total disuse. But the last few times I've been there, I'm probably wrong, and I'll be chastised for this, but I've never really seen anyone there, nor have I seen anyone really parked in that very large parking space over there, which is where I'm told the trailheads are. Again, I'm a Westwoods guy, and Northwoods, I know almost all the trail systems other than the ones on the town properties, except for up in the Northwoods. I really think Bittner Park would be a much better place to site this. And in terms of town resources, there will always be money involved. I guess Catherine's left, but I was going to throw her under the thing about the dog park set a really interesting precedent in town that we really should support a special interest groups that wants to do something on town property, but they should pony up the money or at least make the effort for the initial investment, even if the town will have some cost in maintaining it, because, you know, and lastly, I hadn't really been in that section at Westwoods in a long time in the North Park, and I went back there in I guess November or December and walked it, and just going through the Peddler's Park, you are entering one of the most amazing, pristine parts of the entire Westwoods up there. And I think everyone in this room who has any questions about it should go out there, walk through there, and enjoy it. One other quick point, the noise aspect. I don't know about you, but when I was playing Ultimate and stuff, we weren't whispering to each other. we weren't being nice and quiet. Maybe there's a different etiquette in golf, but man, even listen to the PGA regularly, I hear some words you're not supposed to hear on national TV either. So that is all. You're up, Doctor, with the real frisbees. Thank you.
Excuse me, this is a public hearing for town residents.
For town only?
Yeah.
All right, I apologize. I wanted to follow up.
Good evening, Anthony LaFata, 522 South Hoop Hole Road. Wow, a lot of opposition to this Frisbee golf. I was approached by Rick Maynard some time ago about the Frisbee golf or disc golf project, and I have 4 children here in town, ages 7 to 12. As a father, growing up in this town, I've been a member of this town, owned a business and operated a business in this town for, between my father and I, over 50 years. In light of the recent events in town and past events in town, and seeing, my wife was at a thing at Adams last night about telephones and internet and stuff like that. I can't think of a better project that would bring the youth and elderly and of all ages to an event and bring kids and whatnot out of the technology and into something that would be so awesome. It's a great project. I can't speak for property lines and property owners and property values and dumps and all that. All I can say as a business owner and a father in this town, I'll support this project. If it doesn't happen here, we'll support it wherever you want to do it. I'm happy to do that as a business owner in this town and a father, and Rick Maynard has an awesome track record for running programs in this town. My wife can attest to it. She uses all the parks with our kids, and it's a pretty awesome project. I was shocked to hear all the opposition, but I'm here to support it if you want, and if it doesn't happen here, we'll support it wherever it goes. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Todd Rake. I live at 133 Riverview Drive in Guilford. Full disclosure, I do work for the town of Guilford, and I'm the maintenance custodian for this facility. So I've worked for the town since 2014. I've actually worked at the golf course. I just wanted to say a couple things. I come from I have a little bit of a different take on this. I'm an avid hiker. I mountain bike, I play golf. My daughter is 11 years old, and I think this town's great. And what we really need to do is utilize all of our resources. This particular land has been unused for many years. I mean, I'm still learning about it. 2 weeks ago, I just went for a hike. And I went to Peddler's Park, and it's a beautiful property. But I think it would be fantastic as a disc golf course. I'd like to echo the previous discussion. We all need to move more. We need to get off the phones. We need to communicate, and all of us need more exercise. We have a major obesity epidemic throughout the world, and I just think this would be a great thing. And just in my final comment is that change is not easy, and especially in this town. But the Park and Rec Commission has done a lot of due diligence on this, and they've had a lot of meetings, and I think it's really great that all the support here from everyone coming out, sharing their ideas, but I just like to say that I fully support this. I hope it goes through, and I think it would be great for the town. Thank you.
My name's Ted Mankiewicz. I live at 105 Farmview Drive. I've been an active hiker and led a lot of hikes. I'm on the Westwood Trails Committee, and I have led many hikes through Peddler's Park. I will say I have no opposition to to disc golf. I think it's a fine thing, and I might even try it sometime. However, I will say that the Westwood Trails Committee and I will recommend to them, and they will probably agree, that we really have to close that as an entrance to West Woods if there's a disc golf course there. Fine to have a disc golf course there, but I would not want to put on the maps, and as people may know, I do most of the maps, I would not want to put that as an entrance, because that is inviting people to go through something that might be dangerous for them. It may not be dangerous, it may be dangerous. In any event, we would have to close one of the three major entrances to West Woods, and I think that's a result of it, and if that's what the town wants, then that's fine, but just remember that West Woods is a different thing. It's a beautiful place. I've taken a lot of older people that way because that's an easy access to Plank Walk. It's much harder to get there from Dunk Rock. Can be done, but it's longer. So it would reduce the ability to use that section, but we would stop maintaining the trails there, and we would obscure the trails so people wouldn't wander off the other Westwood trails that are coming by there and end up in a disc golf course that they didn't know was there. But for having one in the town, I think it's fine. The town has a lot of land. It's true the Guilford Land Trust has a little bit more land, but the town has a lot of land, and I'm sure they could find a more appropriate place for a disc golf course. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Mark Makoviak. I live at 54 Chestnut Grove Drive in Guilford. I have three boys. One is one of the Eagle candidates working on this project. I'm also a volunteer advisor to another Eagle candidate working on this project. I've been a volunteer for Scouts for 10 years in the community, a coach at soccer, helped with baseball, lacrosse, and football. So I'm familiar with many of the parks, the uses, and the reasons that kids need to get outside, which is one of the other gentlemen indicated. I also have a Guilford Land Trust trail very close to our backyard where I live. And I will tell you, when I first found out about it, that the trailhead could be very close to our driveway, I was concerned. And I envisioned multiple cars parking at the end of our driveway, etc., but that never happened. And what has happened is my wife and I help maintain the trail in our backyard. So it's kind of like, get out in your community and help out. So speaking of helping out and dumps, which I've not seen a map and I cannot attest to garbage, etc., but I've also been involved, and the Scouts have been involved with Guilford Cleanup Day over the years. And quite honestly, there are many parts of this town that you'd consider a dump. And when people bring in beaten up toilets out of the woods, you are surprised by what you can find. At the end of the day, we have boys and girls that want to get outside. They can be on an intramural team for disc golf. The frisbee golf that someone was alluding to, as far as all the noise that happens on a different type of field, and you wouldn't find that in this particular park. And as far as having a trail go across a tee box, it's kind of like, I'm sure people in this room have played regular golf, as I have. So when a car is about to go across, or someone is about to walk across, you wait. It's good sense to do that. Or if you have a blind tee shot, you ring the bell and it sounds off. So many positives, and I understand the NIMBY thing. I had to get over it a couple times myself. But usually if you get outside and work with your neighbors and stop the we, they thing, it all works out. And the community is better for it. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening, folks. My name is John Jagelski, 110 Round Hill Road. I will preface this by saying I am a member of the Parks and Recreation Committee, or Commission, excuse me. So I do have a vested interest in what has all been said by everybody here tonight. We have listened very carefully to what everybody's had to say, and we are very aware of the concerns about putting this project together. First off, This is Guilford Town property. And the idea is that we're trying to, as stewards of this property, we're trying to find the best use for it. The best use for it at this point is that we feel that this project would enhance the quality of the town of Guilford's Park and Recreations Department. Okay. Secondly, this project has been on our agenda for nearly a year, and I will like to point, I don't want to point fingers, but I would like to say specifically to the people who have been in opposition to this, you did not come to our public forums before each one of our monthly meetings and speak against us. We have had numerous opportunities for you to venture concerns, and you did not show. Thirdly, the trees that we're looking to remove in this project, these are not old growth sycamores or large oak trees. These are scrub trees. These are trees that are saplings. We will protect the mature trees. That's our goal. We do not want to destroy the land to make a park. We want to enhance the existing facility that we have right now. I know folks are concerned about the cutting of trees in town. I live up in the north end of Guilford, north of Guilford Lakes Elementary School, and currently there are numerous trees along Maupus Road that have been tagged by the tree warden for being removed. That's on the timberlands. So, people have talked about risk. Well, quite frankly, folks, you took a lot more risk driving here in your cars than it would be being a part of this project here. I also am a sports official. I officiate baseball, softball, soccer. There is risk in all sports. Errant golf shots, baseball, you have foul balls, kids who can't throw to first base without hitting somebody in the stands. There's risk, okay? We try to mitigate the risk in this. We try to make sure that nothing is trying to enter into private property or onto public roads, okay? At first, I was not in favor of this project, but then over the course of time, we investigated further. We went through all the due diligence. Rick Maynard was very meticulous in presenting to us accurate facts and figures as to what's going on with this project. It wasn't conjecture. It wasn't the sky, blue sky fantasies. These were facts that we had all put together. Bittner Park is a good park, but during the springtime and summer, you can't park there with Little League, soccer, and all the other activities that are going on there. It is very difficult, and trust me, I've always complained about the Little League folks parking down on the circle or parking in areas that they don't belong so they don't have to walk all the way from the back parking lot. People talk about buffer zones. This is an old town. Our sports facilities are in residential neighborhoods. Nut Plains, there's lacrosse, Dome Avenue is right across the street. Bittner, there are houses just on the north end of the, on the south end of the Bittner A and the Little League field and the Bittner B Little League field. Adams is bordered on 3 or 4 sides by residential. And the high school, same thing. There are residences along the entire perimeter of the school, except what's the alternative? Well, we could get rid of all the buffer zones. We can close all the parks. Okay, that would remove all the risk that you're worried about. Okay, you can't do it. You cannot avoid risk. And I think right now the people are talking about whether or not this is a sport that is trending. And the sarcasm came up about curling. Folks, we do not have all the answers towards this park. We are given our best estimate as to what we feel is the best use for this property. It has been lying fallow for years and years, okay? And we feel that for all of the residents of Guilford, it'll enhance the quality of life in town. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Anyone else?
Hi, Claire Dunn. All for clarity, I am on the Park and Rec as well. I will admit that when this first came up in 2016, I had no clue what disc golf was. Then when we decided to pursue it, really wasn't for it because I still didn't get it. With all the research we've done and hearing people come and talk about it and giving examples, and the more I think about our children, I am a mother of 3 small children here in Guilford. I think this is a great opportunity for families that have children that can't afford the sports here in Guilford, or kids that just aren't into the everyday group sports. So this gives them an opportunity to work with their families and friends to be outside. We need to push our kids to be outside more. And it's a perfect area. Who doesn't want to go into the woods and play like we did as young children? So I think Peddler's Park is a great location. Talking about buffers to the families that live on Denison, I live on Timberland trails. There's people in my yard all the time, they get off the trails. Do I complain about it? No. I bought a house knowing that I abutted a trail. Also, look at Nut Plains. John mentioned Dome Avenue. Those people do not have a buffer. We are trying to work with Denison to provide a buffer. So I think it's just part of nature, it's part of our town, and I really would love to see this go forward, and I want to thank the Boy Scouts for coming forward and giving your examples and being willing to help us with it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Sue Robbins, 798 Mulberry Point Road. I'm a resident, of course, but I'm also a commission member of 8 years on Parks and Rec. My term is ending this month, and it has been an extreme honor to work on a commission in town. And I can speak for every single member of our commission that has taken the oath to serve on our board. We hold very seriously the responsibility of being on a board, and we would never enter into the suggestion of an activity for town where we felt we hadn't done our due diligence, we didn't listen to all sides, and we didn't work hard to make sure that what we were presenting wasn't safe for our community. We've had a lot of people weigh in with opinions, opinionated facts, emotions, and we've really worked hard to make sure that we've listened to everybody. This has been on our agenda and on our radar for a year, and I take offense when I hear that people felt that they were all of a sudden surprised by what was taking place in meetings. And I'd like to reiterate what John said very articulately. We're an open board. We're filmed. Our agenda is public. We have public forum, and no one has come out to weigh in until all of a sudden they realized that this is happening. And we were getting close to actually moving forward with a project we've worked very hard on. So I'd just like to remind everybody that we're not the bad guys here. The neighbors who are against it or our residents are not the bad guys. This is a town that works together. And I think we've done that. And I hope that the consideration of the Board of Selectmen is that we've all done our due diligence and that we are trying to present another opportunity for all ages, which is what Park and Rec is about, to provide activities for young up to seniors. So we look forward to continued discussions about it, and we look forward to moving forward with this, what we feel is an important project that will benefit many. Thanks. This one.
Pick up the
Okay, thank you. Okay. Obviously, I'm on the opposing side, but maybe this whole exercise could be a lesson in process going forward. Because the first time, even though it's been stated that there have been meetings and nobody showed up, people are busy. I don't regularly look at what's going on in Guilford on TV. I'm retired now, but amazingly, I have no time. And the first information I got of this project is when I got the letter from Rick Maynard. And so it came to the residents of Peddlers. I assume that it was just Peddlers and Denison that were impacted. So in terms of a process going forward, maybe when commissions are planning something, especially Parks and Rec, that there should be letters going to the neighborhoods for impact information from the actual residents. That's only fair. And, to chastise us for not showing up at the meetings, well, it became, I started responding when I actually got the letter, and I went to the planning and zoning meeting, and I'm here now. So, again, a lesson in trying to work together in the town, and I've heard a lot of suggestions about a compromise. I really hate the idea of cutting down those trees to expand the parking lot. I'm more sympathetic to nature and our environment than a sports activity that could logically be positioned somewhere else in town. And, I do appreciate, all the volunteer aspects of it, but reality is that it's going to cost taxpayers down the road. And so it's not going to be a free event. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Anyone else? I thank everyone for coming tonight and participating, those that shared their opinions and asked questions. So this board will not be acting on this evening. That was not part of the agenda. We will be taking this under consideration shortly. There are some questions, I think, coming out of this that I have. I'm sure some of the other board members have. So if collectively we could collect those and get some answers to those, and then we'll be happy to post it on the town website. Because unfortunately we didn't have a sign-in sheet here with everybody to sign up for emails, but we'll certainly be able to post something on the town website. So once again, thank you very much for participating in the process. I too, like many people who mentioned here, think process is important, and I will clarify a couple of things. When I became acutely aware of this project, which was shortly after taking office, and several of the discussions I had, it became evident to me that there hadn't been a process that most people would find acceptable. Rick Maynard will vouch for this, but I was the one that asked Rick to send letters to all the affected neighbors. Secondly, this public hearing did not have to take place. We could have made this decision at a Board of Selectmen meeting. That is not the way I intend, and this entire board intends to operate. So I will take some offense at some of the comments about the process. This is a new board that was constituted in December, and we are feeling our way through. And as I think Sarah Williams mentioned, let's use this as an example as to how can we effectively engage the community when there are decisions like this that are before us. So thank you very much for participating, and I look forward to seeing more of you or you again at some other meetings as we go through the budget process, because your engagement and your feedback is important to us. So thank you. Item 3 is discuss and take possible action on potential land acquisition. Should we just move across to another? Yeah. Does that make sense? So this, right?
Yeah, the way instead of being in this huge room.
Exactly. Wait a second, can't do it.
Why? We got to come back out on the mic.
I'm just saying
we got to clear the room, though.
Well, yes, clearing the room.
Close those things.
So you're concerned about it not being posted that we had the meeting in a different room?
So can we shut the divider?
You want to read it? John, I thought you were going to do it for me.
Yeah. Don't forget we have to go into motion to go in and invite Pam, Kevin, and Gary.
Yeah, that's it. Is there a motion to go through the second? All in favor?
No, in favor.
We got to come out. All right, is there a motion to come out of executive session?
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. After discussion, I believe we have a motion. Lou?
Yes, I move that we approve the proposal that was presented with the caveat that we authorize the first selectman in consultation with town council to negotiate the inspection contingency.
Second.
Any questions, comments?
Second.
Yep. Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Refuses? With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's it. I'm not asking.